Craig McLean and welcome to episode 9 of the MK1 Escort RS 2000 reassembly. We're finally at that stage where the engine's going to go in this episode, but before it does go in, there's a couple of things I need to do, a couple of preparation kind of jobs that I need to do leading up to the engine going in. So we'll get on with them now. I'll show you a couple of them jobs taking place now, and then you can finally see towards the end of this video the engine finally going in. Trust me, I'm really happy about that. So the first little job to do is to make and fit the brake pipe that runs from the passenger side in a wing, along the chassis leg, up, round the bulkhead, down to the T-piece that'll be mounted on the driver's side in a wing. So I'll get on with that now, get it made up. I'll show you when it's finished, because obviously we need to get that running before the engine goes in, because that would be a bit of a pain to fit when the engine is in situ. And that's that as far as I can take it for now. It's all nicely dressed in. I enjoy doing jobs like that. My obsession with brake pipe bending continues. Basically, I just need to finish off the ends. Obviously, they need flared at the ends. I haven't got the flexi hoses yet, so I'm not going to flare them just yet, or I'm not going to flare that side just yet. This side, I need a T-piece. I think I've got one in the garage somewhere, so I'm going to find that T-piece, get that end flared, the correct fitting on it, and get the T-piece bolted on, and then that's that side finished. But I'm really pleased with that. It looks really nice and neat. So you'll have seen in my last video that the Crossmember I've got was in a terrible state. Someone had really bodged it in the past. So this is my new one. Finally got my new one here. It's in great condition. It's been blasted back to bare steel. So I have now got to weld in these gusset sections, if you like, to strengthen it up to the RS specification. So we've got this one here, this one here. There's an infill panel that sits inside one leg and an infill panel that sits inside the other. They all need clamped, migged as neatly as possible, so that when it's powder coated black, it should look like the original RS unit. So I'll put you on time lapse and I'll show you these couple of plates being welded in, because I haven't really videoed any of my fabrication welding kind of stuff. So this is maybe an opportunity to get a bit of that on film. And that's them all welded in. You can see there's been plenty of penetration on the welds, and it went in really well. It's nice when you have nice fresh steel and you've got the right setting. You can make a really decent job. I've said many times before that about the bigger Clark welders. I think they're a brilliant machine. A lot of people slate them. I've heard a lot of people slating them, but if you have it on the right setting and you've prepared everything really well, I think that's a 195. But I really do feel that they're a fantastic machine. So that now can be took back to get powder coated. But it would, you know, it would be really nice if this would just come back powder coated, as simple as, oh, it would appear it is as simple as that. If only. As you can see, I've got it back from the powder coats now. Really, really chuffed to bits with that. When you get things back from powder coating, they'll look like brand new. It's an amazing process. And when you think how many hours would go into something like this if you were to use the old traditional methods of sandpapers, wire wheels, all the rest of it, and then you'd have it to prime and paint, you'd be talking a couple of days work there, and that'll have took no time at all in the blast cabinet, and quick flick over with the powder coat and you get a beautiful mirrored finish. So yeah, chuffed a bit with that. All my strengthening plates are welded in, have come out really nice. So yeah, that's another part that's now contributing towards getting the engine in this car. So we're getting back on to brake pipes again. Basically what I'm making is a copper pipe to go between the T-piece and the flexi hose on the driver's side in a wing. So I've got a bit of 3/16 copper brake pipe, and I'm going to show you how to flare the ends on for the appropriate fitting that you're fitting for, whether it's a T-piece or whether it's a flexi hose. There's different type of fittings. So basically you have what's known as a male fitting. This is a metric male fitting. That's basically what that is. And then you have female fitting. That's basically the opposite. If you wanted, you could do two different flares, and you could use these two fittings to join two brake pipes together. That's a common practice. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a mushroom end on one side of the pipe and more of a cupped compression on the other end. I'll go through them now and show you the difference between the two. So basically, what you need to remember to do, always remember to put your fitting on first. In this instance, it wouldn't matter because I've got a straight bit of pipe, I could slide it on from the other end. But if I couldn't slide it on from the other end and then I flare the end, you can't put your fitting on. So always remember to put your fitting on first. So then you have two blocks, one in the bottom of the former, one in the top. And you basically sit your pipe into the groove until it lines up perfectly in line with the edge of the block. As you can see there, it's perfectly in line on the edge. And that's how it wants to sit into the block. Now this is obviously a vice mounted flarer. You can get handheld flarers. They're great if you're working in a space where you can't bring your pipe to the bench. An example of that is I've run the brake pipe in underneath the car and the brake pipe needs flared, and I'm not taking that brake pipe back off to flare it. So the handheld ones for that is absolutely brilliant. They're a lot easier than taking the whole pipe off and doing it in the vise. So basically, you put your 3/16 pipe in the formers, you line it up so that, I'll just release this, you line it up so that the pipe lines up at the end of the block as I've just showed you. Slide that over, tighten it up. This is basically a clamp. This clamps your pipe. So now we've got the pipe clamped and I've got it in line with the edge of that block. So we're going to go for 3/16 up 1. This will do the mushroom fitting. So basically, all we do now is fire that handle, release it, and we now have a mushroom fitting that'll butt up to, and that'll now screw into your T-piece. So that's the end for your T-piece. So once you've got your pipe bent to the right shape, or near enough the right shape, it's then time to flare, cut it to the right size and flare the other end. Now the most frustrating part of this, I find, is you bend your pipe exactly how you need it, but then you have to straighten it back up to put into the clamps for the flaring tool. Now you only get so many chances of bending copper pipe, because the more you bend it, it work hardens. By that I mean it gets so hard to bend that it's a nightmare. So basically you've got to try and bend it as little as you can. So I've now fitted the male end with the mushroom end. I've now got to do the 2 operation stage for the other end, and then I'm hopefully going to try and bend the shape back onto it once I get that flared. So basically, again, back in the tool, now this will need backed off to straighten the pipe up perfectly for the former. Get it in. little bit further in. So this time we've got to do it twice. We've got to start off with operation 1 and then we slide it round to operation 2. But we'll start with op 1 and hope that we get the desired effect. Yep, that is now put the mushroom end on. So all we do now is we slide around to op 2, do the same again. Yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. Now we have, I don't know if you can see the difference on camera, but that's the mushroom end dished in the centre. That's for fitting to your flexi hoses, and we have the mushroom end which is domed for fitting into the T-piece. So that is basically that little link pipe made up, and I'll show you it fitted to the car in a couple of seconds. And there's the pipe I was just showing you in place, although it isn't the same pipe I was just showing you because I dropped a bollock. As I was saying on the video just before, the pipe can work harden, and that's exactly what happened here. This curve here on this pipe, I couldn't get the same radius bent back into it without the pipe crimping and looking absolutely awful, and I wasn't happy with it. So, you know, just be aware that you're never going to, you know, you're not always going to get it first time. Don't be afraid to start again if you need to. Don't settle for second best. If you're not happy with it, start again. That's exactly what I did here. So that's the female end I showed you. That'll screw onto the flexi hose, and that's the male end going into the T-piece. And as you can see, I've just rolled a bit of masking tape up into a ball and shoved it in the top to stop crap getting into the brake system. It's always worthwhile remembering to block any ends off. You don't want to get any foreign objects inside the brake lines. So I think that's enough for brake lines today. The other side's done. I'm waiting the flexi hose. I'm quite happy to leave that as it is now, and the rest can be finished off at a later date. And another little job I've just done with the brake pipe, as you can see there, I've fitted a P-clip which involved drilling and tapping the chassis leg to M4, putting a stainless steel M4 bolt in and securing the pipe. It was my mate who brought this up. He said just be careful that your pipes aren't touching the bodywork. He says because that could be classed as an MOT failure, because the pipes could you know, tend to rub against the body. So I've made sure there's an air gap around the back of the pipe along that full section, and just to secure it I put a little P-clip in that bottom corner. So that's just another little job I've done this afternoon. And the next preparation job is I have now fitted the newly refurbished and powder coated crossmember onto the engine. Just how I got that under there was sketchy, to say the least. I basically had the engine resting on blocks of wood. It wasn't exactly secure, but I managed to slide it under and it bolted on really easy, much easier than the last one. So it's now, I've now rotated the engine round so it's facing the right direction, and it's ready to basically put onto a trolley jack the car up, slide it under, and away we go. Well guys, the day has finally arrived for the engine and the gearbox to go in the car. Not quite how I anticipated it or envisaged it, because as with everybody during COVID, everything's changed, everyone's lives have been turned upside down, and I don't have anyone to give me a hand to put it in, which when I originally put the engine and gearbox in for mock-up last year, that was done by myself. But the difference there was there was nothing to scratch, everything was only in primer. There was no, you know, there was no real tragedy going to happen by putting it in myself. And it went in fairly easy with a couple of trolley jacks, and I'm hoping the same happens today. The difference is I've now, because the car is on the frame, I've got to marry the gearbox up to the block in situ under the bonnet before I push the engine further back. So I'm not looking forward to it, but sometimes you've just got to improvise, you've got to carry on and do what you can, and that's exactly what I'll be doing today. So I'll put you on time lapse, I'll show you some different parts of the stages of it going in, and wish me luck. So the first job obviously is to get the gearbox into place, and I don't want it getting marked, so I've carefully wrapped it in bubble wrap. I've removed the gear selector and I've also prepared the frame that it's going to be sitting onto with wood and cardboard tape, so it's got a padded surface to sit on. Then I can slide the gearbox into there and lift the engine up to the gearbox. So that's first stage complete. Right, that's step one out the way, no danger. That went in quite well. Just lifted it in on the trolley jack and edged it into position. It's now sitting on the cardboard. I think it needs to come this way a tad once we get the engine in, but we'll soon find out, won't we? Another little preparation job. One of my viewers a couple of weeks ago sent me a message and said, before you put your engine in, remember to put this rubber hose on at the back, because it's an absolute pig to get it afterwards. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I can very well understand that. That's pretty good advice. I'll make sure I do that. So thankfully my mate had this pre-formed pipe, which I've cut to the right shape and size. I've got some pictures of the engine in last time, and I've made a rough guesstimate of just how long that needs to be to align up with the heater hoses, which I now need to cut back because they'll foul the back of the engine. So I'm gonna chop them back further back towards the bulkhead, which is one of my next jobs. Right, I think I've done as much preparation work as I can think. I've shortened them 2 pipes, basically took them back to bulkhead length. I can always take the heater out and play with that later on if I need to. Everything is now in place for the big lift. I've got the bolts ready just to screw in when I get the engine up and married up. So I'm going to stop for a bite to eat, and as soon as I've finished, it's the big lift. Not looking forward to it, but it's got to be done. So let's just get on with it. Well, it's in, but not without a fight. That was really, really hard work on my own. I definitely could have done with 2 pair of hands. I'm chuffed to bits how it went. It's all in, it's all bolted in. There's a couple more bolts to put from the gearbox through into the bell housing. I've got 5 in it at the minute just to secure it. The crossmember is bolted up into the chassis legs. And you know, we're looking good. One of the issues was the water rail fouls the fuse box. Now I was wondering about getting rid of that fuse box anyways. I was wanting to keep it for originality. Obviously that's where they should be, and I was going to leave it there for originality, but I think I'm just going to put a nice little blanking plate over that now, and reroute the fuse box inside with the rest that I discussed earlier. I'm going to be putting extra fuses under the dash for a lot of the circuits. So yeah, that's a big job out the way, but what a fight. You know, having to balance the engine on a trolley jack, and then I had to jack it up at the front, jack it up at the back, keep moving backwards and forwards, and then you have issues with one trolley jack getting in the way of the other. It was a real fight, but once I got it up into position, it slid onto the gearbox fairly easily. Bolted up. I've jacked the gearbox up at the back to where it needs to be. Another little issue I had was, you can see there's a decent clearance between the back of the cam cover and the lip, but there was 2 like castings on the edge of that head that aren't needed. I don't know why they're there, and I have had to chop them off because they were touching the lip. So I've now got about 8 mil of clearance there now. Yeah, it looks really, really good. I'm really pleased with that. And we've got gears as well. All the gears select. So yeah, a success. A very, very hard day, but I feel absolutely great now that I've achieved it and I've got it in. This is what it's all about when you know when things turn out right in the end. And the hose there, the hose lines up perfectly. It just needs put onto the top. So there's 2 heater hoses, and according to Retro Ford, this hose needs to go onto the top one, and then the other one will be rerouted into the bottom bottom radiator hose. So that's basically how that pipes up. And rather than running a rubber hose all the way around, I'm going to make a solid steel pipe or stainless, and I'm going to make it pick up on bolts, little tabs to pick up on bolts, so it follows a route round, and then just have a rubber joiner for neatness. So yeah, success, but yeah, definitely a 2-man job. I could have really done with a 2nd man, but unfortunately my mate just couldn't be here today. And the answer to the gear selector lining up with the hole in the tunnel, it was absolutely bang on in the centre. I've been very, very lucky there. Couldn't have been any more central. So I was chuffed to bits with that. It lines up beautifully. And that knob won't be staying on, by the way. It's not even the right knob. The reverse is in the wrong place, which is what led me to try and select reverse in the wrong place. As I mentioned earlier, I was trying to get reverse in the wrong place, and it was that bloody gear knob that made me that caused me into forced me into that error trap. So yeah, I was very lucky with that as well, thankfully. So on that very positive note, I'm going to leave this video here. Other than being a bit of a nightmare working on my own, everything went as well as could be expected today, really. It's in, I'm chuffed to bits about that, and now I can work away at fitting it into the car properly. So my wife got back from work, and she looked and she said, "Oh yeah, it looks great." She says, "There's a lot of room, isn't there?" She says, "What's still to go in?" I says, "Well, there's the battery to go in that corner, there's a radiator at the front, the throttle body's at this side, and then the exhaust at the other side." And she says, "The exhaust?" She says, "The exhaust goes at the back of the car." I says, "Yeah, Yasmin, but where do the fumes come from?" I said, "Do the fumes get from the front of the car to the back via Bluetooth?" I thought that was a cracker. That I bust out laughing. I thought that was brilliant. And she right away she realised exactly what she'd said. Anyways, just thought I'd share that for a bit of a laugh. The next video will be, as you've seen in the last video, I've got quite a lot of parts now that I can start progressing with the build. So the next video will be, we'll see a lot of them parts being fitted. I think the first job I'm looking at doing will be fitting the windscreen. I want to get that fitted as soon as it comes. If it comes, if it comes in one piece this time, I'd like to get it into the car and get that awful job out the way. So yeah, you'll see the likes of the windscreen going in, the carpets, and all the other bits you see in the previous video. So as always guys, thanks very much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, especially if you like what you see. And I'll see you very, very shortly with an update featuring some of the parts I've just talked about. See you very soon.